1 hour of your or 45 minutes of your precious lunchtime to learn more about Terre des Hommes Foundation and our work, or short TDH. We organized this talk for you, our donors and partners. And I want to express our sincere gratitude for your support and being with us on the journey to make lives better, lives of children. They should simply have the right to just be children. My name is Martin Restelli. I'm your moderator today. As you know, TDH is headquartered in Lausanne and with a branch office in Zurich, where I am located, and I'm responsible for the relationship with major donors. As the largest and oldest leading Swiss organization for children, we are committed to protect children and their communities through our activities. TDH is currently present across 27 countries, and we have reached in 2024 over 5.8 million children and members of their communities. Our local staff works in difficult environments, in war zones like Ukraine, in regions affected by natural disasters, and in places where poverty and malnutrition force millions of children and their families to migrate. Before we start, I would like to give you some general information. 3 points I would like to mention. The webinar, as you already recognize, will be held in English. We will record it, and in order to store or share it with people who could not attend today. The talk will last about 45 minutes, and I encourage you to ask questions. You can put that into the chat, and you can use the Q&A button for that. If you want to stay anonymous, there's also a button that you can click, hide my name. Otherwise, the other participants may see your name. And third, apologies if the internet connection to the Ukraine is not stable and maybe sometimes it's a bit lagging. Sorry for that. So now let me introduce our speakers. First, Barbara Hintermann, the General Director or CEO of TDH. She visited the Ukraine 3 weeks ago, and that's the main purpose why we want to share this information about what happens in Ukraine currently, and she will give us a short insight about her trip or her what she has experienced. Barbara Hintermann has a long experience in the humanitarian sector. After graduating business and law school, she worked for 2 years at Fides in Zurich and then moved into international world of NGO at UNICEF first, and then she was working in different countries for ICRC for more than 20 years. In 2020, she was elected by the Board of Foundation as our new CEO of TDH. After Barbara, Mariia Ismahulova and Alina Ostrykova, 2 of our staff in the Ukraine, will explain the process of our activities. It will be a discussion between me and them, and they will also report about the current situation, especially in the frontier oblasts in the east of Ukraine. I will introduce Mariia and Alina after Barbara's presentation. Barbara, may I ask you to come in and tell us what you have seen in the Ukraine. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. It's really a pleasure to be with you, and I thank you very much for taking the time to listening to us. I see also our great team from Ukraine, or some of our team members here present, and it's really great to see you again also here on the screen. So I travel from time to time to visit our activities, see some high-level interlocutors, but also to talk to our teams and provide the support to them. So the recent visit, the last one was, as Martin mentioned, I went to Ukraine for 10 days. It's quite a journey to get there, as there are no flights, as you can imagine. But it was an interesting journey of 10 days that I that I managed to carry out there. I see that my presentation is not online, so I will just speak. Sorry, I had prepared a presentation.
It's coming.
Oh, it's coming. Okay, good. So next slide, somebody, or can I do it? I can do it. Well, these are some impressions, of course, that doesn't show necessarily the war of today, but in the middle you see a war museum of the Second World War, and then you have also some beautiful buildings like the church in Kharkiv, but also the Motherland statue, huge statue next to the Museum of the Second World War. Next slide, somebody is doing, okay. So we are present. I give you some information first about our presence in Ukraine. So we are present in Ukraine since 2015. We have been present there. We have about 60 staff members. The big majority are our dear national colleagues, but we have also some internationals, 5 persons. You have seen in the map just before, we have about 5. We have 5 offices. And I visited Kiev, of course, and then also Kharkiv. So these were the 2 regions I visited during the 10 days. We have a budget, it's varying, it's around 6 million currently, I believe. The main activities, just briefly, we do child protection and are recognized as such. And within the child protection, we do follow individuals. We call it case management, individual children who have suffered violence or a trauma, etc. And need protection. We are also recognized in Ukraine on our mental health and psychosocial support to children who suffered from the effects of the war that has started 3.5 years ago. We do also, and now we'll probably upgrade our activities in relation to access to justice. Under access to justice, we do understand activities for children who are in conflict with the law. I will not enter into the details. And then we have, of course, humanitarian assistance, not only in the regions I visited, but also in other regions, as there is a big number of internally displaced persons, for example, within Ukraine, as you know, but also for other reasons. When I spoke to our team, I recognized that we have really a deep knowledge of the political, economic, social, cultural, and humanitarian context in Ukraine. And this is very important to have this knowledge, then to develop our network with partners, but also the authorities, local, but also at the national level, and then define our activities. And then I think what I could hear from the team, from beneficiaries, from partners, and from the government as well, we are really recognized in regard to our child participation. I will come back to that because I really have great stories to share with you, but also mental health and psychosocial support, and of course, the humanitarian assistance part for children and the families around them. First, let me just talk about our brave and very committed team in Ukraine. Some of them are here. We have the leadership globally, that means in Kiev, but we have also leadership at the offices level, a very strong leadership, very committed and exemplary to our team members, and that this is very dear for me as the CEO, that we stick to our values, and I have seen values-based leadership. And then we have also a well-functioning management team. I had a meeting with the management team. We have somebody responsible for the programs, for logistics, for security. Unfortunately, that person, a very dear colleague, who accompanied us in all what is related to security, was now recruited by the army. So this is the reality of many men, young men and middle-aged men in Ukraine. And then we have all the rest of our staff very committed as well to the children's rights, to fight for their rights and to implement our work. What I have also seen of our team is that they are really, really resilient, which can have negative and positive aspects. But I think resilience in a war that has lasted more than 3 years, it is important to keep on. And I think that was really what I saw. Very brief words on the context. I will not mention all aspects here. But when I was in Kiev, the last 3 days I was in Kiev again. That was the time where there were massive attacks in Kiev. Not only, but let's talk about Kiev because I was there. Every night I had to go to the shelter. And this is, for me, it was only 3 days. But this is what the population has experienced for the last 3.5 years. And it's very tiring when your nights are interrupted and has an effect on the mental health, especially also for children, of course, who do not understand why sometimes they have to go to the shelter. I think that's more a military part, but what we see also in the media, but what we could witness ourselves, I think Ukraine has a very performing air defense system, which is important, of course, in such a context. Unfortunately, no peace agreement yet, maybe one day. I still believe there will be peace in this region, and it is probably not so far away, but that's my speculation. So we have 3 types maybe of operations, if I may say so. We have the humanitarian action that is still, where there is the essential items are lacking. So there is a need for humanitarian action. And then there are areas where we really can work on development aid and integrate already developed longer term activities. And then there are reforms going on, which will impact both reforms from the government. I would say the West in Ukraine is rather stable with challenges on education, challenges on, the IDP situation, challenging also when it comes one day to the returnees, refugees coming back. And then we have the East, South, but also the North, all those areas that are still suffering from regular military operations. Next slide, please. Now there are opportunities for our organizations. As I mentioned, we had diverse discussions with the government on access to justice. On one part, in Ukraine itself, with the ombuds person in charge of human rights. So some children, we talk about children being radicalized, for example. That is really a group that is of interest of us, but then also help them to bring in a more child-centered justice system. And we had a discussion with them recently in Madrid with the high-level delegation coming from Ukraine in Madrid during our World Congress on juvenile justice or child-friendly justice. I think there is an opportunity also to have another winterization program. We had one last year, financed by Switzerland, and the Swiss representative for international cooperation in Kiev was really pleased with our program and the impact on the people. So there is a good opportunity maybe for next year again. And then there is another opportunity. Switzerland has developed a 4-year strategy on reconstruction in Ukraine. And I think Terre des Hommes has many competencies and expertise that we can really that can contribute to that strategy. So we discussed that with the Swiss representative for international cooperation in Kiev, for example, building schools, hygiene awareness around the schools, but also the community-based approach when it comes to reconstruction. We had, for example, now I switch to another concept to give you a concrete example. What does that mean? In Afghanistan, a couple of years ago, Switzerland, Swiss government, financed the construction of a big road. And that crossed also villages, etc. So we were asked to provide all what is necessary for a meaningful community-based approach in that project. So this is something we could really contribute to the Swiss strategy. Now, I would like to give you one of my dearest experience in Ukraine. We went when we were in the Kharkiv region. We went to rural areas and visited 2 child advisory boards. Maybe as a first information why we developed that is the children do not go to school anymore, have not gone to school anymore for the last 5 years in that region. So all the education is taking place online. You can imagine the impact on the children and the young people. They lose their social skills, they lose their communication skills, etc. So I had the chance to talk to two child advisory boards. And they really shared their experience. The last 9 months, they have met regularly through these child advisory boards, have developed joint projects like a gymnastic room. They have built the gymnastic rooms themselves, so they implemented that really. And when I asked them, also especially 2 girls, I asked them, so what did you learn? What was the benefit for you to be a part of these child groups who gather regularly? And they really said, you know, I lost the capacity to discuss also when we disagree, you know, to find a solution and to work together on a joint project. So it's a small initiative, but it has an enormous impact on the mental health of these young people, these children. And the last one, I think, is on a partner organization, a young partner organization called U2, not to confuse with Me Too. It's U2. It's a young couple, and they started to work for children who have gone through traumas, you know, and who need mental health and psychosocial support. They have a lot of passion. They shared that during the meetings. I really could feel it, the passion to help children. They are very motivated, and we help them, you know, in building their capacity. So to become an association that can then also reach out to institutional donors themselves to get funding. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Barbara. Very interesting and touching moments, I believe, that you experienced. What is, in your view, the most touching part that you have seen or touched you, and that you might even think, you know, daily on that here back in Switzerland? Is it the sirens? Is it the people you met? What could it be?
It's always the people. Of course, the sirens are, you know, still a bit present. It's always the people. First of all, our teams. Without our teams, TDH would not implement any program. And here we have Alina from Kharkiv. I mean, she's a very energetic woman. You will hear her later on. Or we have also other team members here. It's really, I'm so impressed how they manage, despite the war situation, to keep on and believe that there is a future. That's one. And then, as I said before, you know, speaking to these young people and to see how they manage today to discuss and even to disagree. In one group of these young people, there was a disagreement mainly between boys and girls. And they managed to discuss that, to debate and say, okay, we disagree. We want to go further in that direction. We believe we can do that. And the other said, well, we are a little bit more pessimistic. We don't think that we will manage to get the support of the authorities or whatever. So it's the people, it's the Ukrainian people, and it's our team.
That's great. Maybe some leaders, maybe they could be a role model for the leaders of the world, at least some of them. Huh?
Yes, absolutely.
So thank you very much, Barbara. I'm coming now to our conversation with Alina and Mariia. So Alina is our base coordinator of 3 frontline oblasts. The oblasts are like the cantons, similar. And there's one oblast, for example, that is about 3 times as large as Switzerland. Kharkivska is really big. And she has a master in international relations and profound work experience as well within TDH, but also other NGOs, especially in the parts of child protection and gender-based violence. Lena, you are a mother of 1 child. And Mariia is the head of our national child protection in the Ukraine. She has joined in 2022 and worked before coming to TDH also for some other NGO, but is actually a teacher and trainer originally. She is a mother of 2 kids. Now, may I ask you my first question? During Sunday, you told me that last Sunday night there were heavy bombings and drones and ballistic rockets in Kiev. Almost every day you have these kind of possible attacks, and I'm wondering, how is your team dealing with that? We heard it from Barbara. It was very special to her, and she was she could go back to Switzerland, but you have to deal with this all the time as well, of the children and the people in Kiev or in whole Ukraine or the eastern part maybe more. How do you work under these extreme circumstances and constant risk of something could happen to you at any time? Maybe Alina, you can answer that.
Yes, thank you, Martin. Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here and so happy to have a chance to speak to all of you. So, commenting the situation and working in the very volatile security context, and especially the needs, I want to say that like the team and children are incredibly resilient. Really, like we're trying to do our best, and we're constantly sleepy because some kind of shellings are happening almost every single day. But like talking about the needs of kids and the team in general, we should be very careful here not to confuse the adaptation and resilience with well-being, because children adapted, but that doesn't mean they are okay. The same as adults, like, and the teams working, like the field teams. Adaptation doesn't equal well-being. And moreover, children who were already vulnerable before the war, children with disabilities, children from very poor families, those who are displaced or lost their parents, they've become even more at risk right now. So they still have to face different barriers accessing schooling, and as Barbara mentioned before, like following the COVID era, we have in Kharkivska Oblast, it's a 5th year of online schooling. And in the long crises like this, inequalities deepen, and the most fragile groups fall further behind. And children are starting to see all of this as normal, growing up with the air sirens, learning in shelters, and knowing how to react in explosion. And I have an example from my own life. My son was a preschooler at that time, and we were in Kiev for that time, going back home, and the air alert started. And my son, like, he was not scared, he was not shocked. He just fall on the ground, covered his head with his hands like this. And he was so happy, saying, "Mom, I know what to do. I will not get a concussion right now." So that's an example of he adapted, but we should be very careful here as an adults, to not to let long-term conflict reshape what childhood looks like.
Mm. Okay. Yeah, I will come back to that, the trauma part again a bit later. But since the start of the war in 2022, we have helped directly over 150,000 children, probably more. I mean, it's really a big number. And you said that there's the eastern part which is close to the front line, or within the front line actually, and a lot of people, families, children have moved from the east to the less critical western part. Now, I ask myself, can you maybe you, Alina, or Mariia, can you tell us a little bit about the children in our program? What needs do they have since the war started? And maybe what did they change the needs? Because those who could not leave and had to stay in this area are probably the most vulnerable ones, or they don't, socially in the lowest income, or I don't know what the reasons are why they could not leave and had to stay in the east. So did that change the activities that we offer to the children?
Mariia?
Yes. Sorry, I had a technical small issue. Hello, everyone, and nice to have you all here. So, answering your question, Martin, whether our program changed when we are talking about the kids who are in the East or those are in the West. Basically, what we do, we follow child needs. Yes, we have our mental health and psychosocial support programs where we do group activities, and that's what Barbara observed when she visited Kharkiv. And we do the same in the East. I mean, these programs are run by us in the East and in the West. Then if we talk about child advisory boards, then we create a safe space for child to talk about their problems and their needs that they see. And then they are who decide what initiatives they want to provide, So yes, the context is different in the East and in the West, but that is why I am so grateful I'm a part of TDH, is that what we do, we really every single day we try to hear children voices. As for the more individual support, yes, case management, then cases might be honestly horrible, both in the East and both in the West, because family separation is happening in both areas. Because even if a mom and a child move to the West, most often fathers stay, or even mother and father stay in somewhere close to the farm, for example, and the child is moved with their aunt or grandmother or someone. And online education, which Alina mentioned, is another reality we have. And maybe it's not that bad. I mean, it is still at least the access to education, but what if war continues for 3 another years? I don't know. Oh, not. But then we will have a whole generation, a whole group of children who never ever entered the classroom. And that's obviously going to have an impact, right? So if we are talking generally about what TDH is doing as a part of child protection, is that we do create and open safe spaces, child-friendly spaces. And since the year number 4, when we are into the full-scale invasion, many organizations as well as TDH create safe spaces. But when we talk to children, when we ask them about their needs, Ukraine is big, it's huge, as it was mentioned already. We still hear from children, we need a space. We need a space where we can come together, where we can, forget about certain things. And also child-friendly spaces. It's an perfect entry point for us to gather children and observe and see whether there are kids who need more in-depth individual support, which is in our language, case management, right, for most vulnerable and affected children.
Okay, let me, as we all know, talking about that, the childhood of every person, us here and children all over the world, the childhood is a very important time in our lives that impacts our lives as adults. Now, traumas is is like wounds or are wounds that can be healed, but it has also to be addressed. And otherwise it leads into depression or addiction or what kind of negative behavior. And you mentioned the case management. Now, in our last talk with about Gaza, there was they observed that some children, they did not talk anymore. They were just stoic. They're physically present, but completely somewhere else by protecting themselves. Or I'm not a psychologist, but I assume that these cases would be, helped and supported by us in the case management. Now, my question is, maybe you can explain a little bit what do you do with these children, and also how do you select these children?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for bringing this up. Yes, unfortunately, in Ukraine, we also see developmental deprivation among children, which caused by the experience they go through in the war. And as for the case management, we have, of course, we have our international approved standard procedures for case management, where we do the assessment, and then what is very important, this is an individual assessment of the child and his surrounding, which is a family or family members, if it's not mother and father. And then we create a step-by-step individual plan, and there is no, how to say, tempo, or like there is no just scheme which you just follow for every single cases for every single case. This exactly very creative, if I may say so, but very individual in-depth analysis and what can we do for this specific child with the resources we have. Of course, we, as Third Zone, we coordinate as much as we can with local authorities, with other actors, with other stakeholders. And the referral is a big, huge chunk of work, which we do through case management, but we do not just refer, just say, call this number, they're going to help you or solve your issue. No, we help our child and his caregiver to reach the needed service, and we follow up on how is it going, whether the issue was solved, and so on and so forth. And one case plan may include up to, 30, 40 steps, because the child protection risks, they very rarely comes one by one. Yes. So if we have emotional violence, then there most probably will be also neglect, and this is very high risk for it start to be physical violence, for example. So the issues are very complex, and what is also worrying me personally is that it's like that's our reality. When you wake up in the morning, you take your phone. That's horrible to say, but you check how many people were killed this night. And it's not like how many, today is 24th of June and I'm in Kiev, and 12 nights out of 24 in June, we had shelling. And so either I feel it, or if I don't feel it myself with my 2 kids in the corridor, then I know that's probably my mom who is in another oblast, or it's Alina who is in Kharkiv, or other, friends. So what we do, we check, that's the true, how many people were killed. What strikes my heart every time is when I see kids who were killed during the nights. And tonight we also had a child who was killed. But also, and this is one number, and then we had a bigger number, which says how many injured were there. And this is where, it's just, I think that's how our brain works. We would say, oh, at least they are alive. But very rarely we really think, what does that mean? And how now the life of these people look like? And if I may just quickly tell you about the one child.
Of course.
Yes, her name is Sasha, and today she turns 4. Today is her birthday. And she and her mom, they gone through the ballistic attack very close to their house, and part of their house was damaged. And the injury for the girl, for the small, at that time, 3 years old, beautiful small girl, was that she lost a part of her hand. And it's been already 8 months since that happened to them. And they moved to Kiev because she already had 4 surgeries, and she has the 12 months more medical plan from doctors on what should be done to her. They lost their flat. Her mom cannot work. As you understand, she is 24 hours with the child. Father of this girl, a month before what that happened to small Sasha, while he was working as a policeman, he experienced a drone attack and he lost his leg. And he has been in the hospital for 9 months already. How does the family could survive when 2 caregivers are not able to work? That is the question I'm asking myself every single day. And yes, they were taken under case management, of course, and there were organizations who were ready to support that. But also the thing is that humanitarian intervention is time-bounded. And we have to report to donors, and we have to show how many cases we've done, let's say, for 4 months or 6 months, But the stories of these children, they are not that, unfortunately, not that time limited. And these families need support for much longer. So it's like, there are, as I said, numbers, but we also have to remember behind each single number, there is a child, there is a story, a real one. And news are the amount of news is crazy. And unfortunately, somehow, most of them are bad. And so we cannot keep our attention for a long time on one news because the new ones are coming. But children and their families are left there.
I understand. We have a few minutes left, and I would like to encourage also our audience, please, if you have any questions, it doesn't need to be on the topic that we talk about, be an interest, any interest that you have in this Ukraine problematic, or specifically what TDH does, please ask it in the chat. I will come back to that in a few minutes. So, Mariia, just a small follow-up. You say the case management is not only the children. So the safe space is more really for the children. They're together, you play with them, you do activities whatsoever. But the case management includes also other parts of the life of the children, like the mom, the setting is a bit widened. Talking about that, what do you think in the future, what problems will develop when, for example, the soldiers, the fathers come home from war, we might have grandfathers talking about World War II, what it has done to these men. What do you think, how this could develop? Can there also be TDH be of help with all this experience that we have gathered now in the case management?
Thank you, Martin. Yes, exactly. If in order to support a child, as a child is not self-sufficient in terms how he lives and how his development, his or her development is going, of course, we need to influence and support the whole ecosystem around the child. And the family, mom, dad, and other caregivers is the first people who influence how the child is growing and so on and so forth. And yes, we cannot, we have to admit that mobilization is national-wide in Ukraine. And yes, a lot of men and women also, but men mostly were already taken and joined already the army, and the process continues. And some of soldiers have already returned, either because they were injured or so. And we have these cases in case management. And so, like, we do not support any soldiers directly, anyhow, obviously. However, these soldiers are fathers very often to the kids we are working with. And we observe already, and I feel like we will see these issues wider in the future, is that experience men are going through in the battlefield is horrible. I don't know what word I should use here. And then when they come back home, what is very important, they do not come to the peaceful country, they do not come to peaceful home. Yes, because when you're in the front line and then you go for a vacation, leave, how it is called, yes, you still come back to Kiev, Kharkiv, which is attacked and shelled every night.
Yeah.
And that's number one. And number two, PTSD syndrome is unfortunately very common. And the kids who are waiting at home, they are in the position where they are waiting for their fathers who are heroes, because that's how we feel and what do we think about our soldiers. But for every specific child, this is even more. But also, when this father come home, if the support is not provided to him as a post-combatant, right? I don't know what is the term, then his family might receive the drawbacks, the negative effects, aggression, and all of that, just because the experienced person gone through, he or she is not able to digest it. And then, family is the safest place where you can show all your wounds and trauma.
Yeah.
So this is a new thing we are stepping in, and that's where we will need case management even more. And our government is already doing the strategy of having case workers supporting soldiers directly as a parallel work. But the work in child protection will only grow.
Yeah. So it's not only about building houses and streets, it's about building souls or rebuilding the spirit.
I also like to compliment here, if I may. Do we still have time?
Yeah, I have one question coming from the audience, but go ahead, Alina.
Okay, so another point that though we are trying to do child protection holistically, and as we already mentioned, child-friendly spaces, we do have a positive parenting program for parents. But here, in order to this program to be efficient, you need, the parent has to be ready, has to have a desire to be involved into the program and to adapt these positive strategies and coping mechanisms. And as Mariia said, soldiers, our fathers who are back from the front line, being in an alert state, like their psychic is constantly alert, are back in the situation where like at home, where their psychic is still constantly alert. And that's not like, it makes this positive parenting or like holistic like psychosocial support not really in place for the person to deal with. The person will be involved into his particular needs, postponing something else, while his child will be still around and will need his or her loving father.
Yeah. Thank you, Alina. So the question that I received from John is what aspects of what we do aren't discussed or talked about enough? I guess it's more general, aren't discussed in the society or news. Maybe some things we don't hear about at all. Are there things that are kept under the table or the carpet?
Do you mean in the international news or in Ukraine?
Yeah.
Because in Ukraine, all news are on the table. Everything is, it is.
So it's difficult for you to answer then.
Yeah. Fortunately and unfortunately, because it doesn't help to hope, and you have always a lot to think and to be concerned. But in Ukraine.
Barbara maybe has an input there.
Well, I think maybe it's not that it is necessarily not in the news, but I think we have to be careful in Ukraine not to forget that humanitarian assistance, even in the West, is still important. We have IDPs, internally displaced people, living in the Western part, not only, but I talk about those, and we cannot just assume, because there is less bombings in that part, or almost none anymore, that there is no humanitarian need. So I really would like to stress that factor. Another one is, although it's a small group, but there is a group of children considered as radicalized by the Ukrainian government. And those children can be even sentenced, I think, up to 15 years in jail, children, young people. So this is a group, that is not really mediatized. And maybe it's good that it is not too much in the media. But I think it's something that I would like to see in the future that Terre des Hommes will address in its access to justice activity or program. As I would like to mention those, maybe those two as.
Thank you, Barbara, for this valuable input. I was not aware of that actually, but I think another thing that we don't really talk about, we talk about NGOs helping there and there, etc. But we never, I think we don't see the people behind. So the people like you, Alina and Mariia and many others, you're helping people, children, and you are also affected by this negativity or this war and this conflict. So you're not like, it doesn't affect me. You're also part of the society. You have children and you help others. So this is probably also something that is not seen or talked about enough. So I'm really sorry. It's very interesting, and but our 45 minutes have passed already since six minutes, and I could go on and ask you questions, and I'm sure that we will do other briefings about other activities of TDH. I hope the audience, you got a little bit of inside information. That's what we want to provide, a different view from only the media or from TV journalists, etc. So really a view, an inside view by us, which is not biased. Of course, we are biased because we want to help and we need your support. As you can see, it will not only end with new houses and new streets. We need also to take care of the people of the future in Ukraine. We want to do that. We have this expertise, so we are very happy and grateful that you support us. But I also want to thank you, Mariia, Alina, and you, Barbara, as well, for showing me, us, the audience, that there is people with a good heart, with a good experience, knowledge, know-how, and that people are taken care of in difficult situations. And we wish you, or I wish you all the best and really a lot of strength. Barbara, you also want to say
yes, of course. In my role as
goodbye.
Director General, I would like to thank you very much for your presence today, for listening to us, and for your continued support. We talk about children, and we consider the children as the treasure of our society. So we have really to take care of those children. They are the future. They are our leaders in our society in the future. So thank you very much again. It's precious that you're here, and it's precious. Your support is precious as well.
Thank you,
And
Barbara.
have a nice day.
Thank you, Barbara. Also from my side, thank you very much. And I agree with you, Barbara. Don't we want the children to make us smile?
Yes, indeed, we want that.
And they need to be healthy. They can make us smile. Yes. Thank you very much,
Bye.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.